woman that I have not known her that long, but the minute I heard her story, touched my heart, empowered me, and made me realize how many more women in the community we have as herself. So please welcome today to Con Mary Rabago, Corina Madruga Chavez. How are you, Corina?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for being here with us. And I'm never going to forget the day that you were sharing your story with a group of students from the community college. It really touched me. I knew about your amazing work within the education arena, which Corina is the president of the board for the Tolleson Unified School District.
Union High School District.
Union High School District. Thank you for correcting me. And if you hear my voice a little Donald Duck, please forgive me. I'm a little under the weather, so it's not the normal tone of it. Now, Corina, can you start telling us why the beginning of your teen years were not as easy and you were not as successful as we can see you today, and how you overcame all those challenges?
Right. So the story is raw and vulnerable, so I will do my best not to get emotional about it, but let's be honest, it's my story. So as a teenager, like many teens that I actually have the privilege of serving for, I grew up with not a lot of money in the West Valley.
Mm-hmm. What area in particular?
In particular, I lived in West Phoenix, and I went to Tolleson High School where I served on the governing board.
Okay, perfect. What an honor going back there.
Yes, it is actually. So as a teenager, I think a lot of times we are not taught how to love ourselves, so I was trying to find acceptance elsewhere. So like many students, I ended up pregnant as a teenager.
How old were you?
I was 16 at the time. And like many Hispanic families, the tradition was you have to make this right. So you have to get married.
You better get married. I know how that's saying.
So at 16, I got married.
16 years old.
At 16 years old, I got married. So I was a junior in high school, married, pregnant, scared, had to leave my parents' home. So as time went, the relationship wasn't what it was supposed to be. It was.
That sounds very common nowadays,
it's very
right?
common. You're very common. Not even, I guess, not even just to teenagers. But it turned abusive, and we didn't know how to interact. And so there I was, 16, on my own in an abusive relationship, and then sometimes wandering the streets at night, not sure where to go. And I was embarrassed because I didn't know who to tell. And so that's where I was. And then I couldn't finish school because of all these challenges that were happening, so I ended up dropping out of high school.
And excuse me for a second, because what you're saying is so common within our culture, right?
Mm-hmm.
I remember my grandma, and even among my tias and my mom, to constantly hear this, es tu cruz, mijita. So it's your choices, you got to put up with that, correct?
Yes,
but you come to a situation, a realization that it doesn't have to be like that.
It doesn't. And so I had my first daughter, and she is a blessing. I think she changed my life. But I knew that I couldn't stay in this situation, so I left the situation. And I knew now I'm a single mom, I had to do something different. So even though I dropped out of high school, I went back to high school a year later to finish high school and get my diploma. And then I went to work full-time because I had to support her. And so I wasn't making much money, but I was not making enough money to get help from the state. So I had to make sure I had a job where I could make my living, provide benefits for me and my daughter, and continue to go to high school. So I worked 30 hours a week, and I also went to high school, and I finished with my diploma. And then I got married again, and so during that time, I try to live my life by the checklist that everybody has. You get married, you buy a house, you have another child. And I did all these things, but as I was becoming into my adult womanhood, if you will, I just knew there was more, and I knew that the decisions I had made did not define me. So I went back to school later in life, and it wasn't until my 20s and 30s that I got a bachelor's degree and a master's degree. And now I'm a single mom again.
Okay.
And like many women, I think, when you face all these challenges, I actually went through a very deep depression, and I didn't know what to do. And so somebody referred me to another program, and it wasn't a self-help program, it was a leadership program.
A leadership?
A leadership program through Via del Sol Hispanic Leadership Institute.
It sounds familiar. I told you guys have a lot in common today, but well, we'll discover that as we go through the show.
So during this program, it talks about servant leadership, but what it does is also you address a lot of things in your life that you kind of buried. And a lot of things that I buried came to the surface, and I finally had to deal with them. And I remember leaving these classes, and I had the ugly cry going, right? But it was very cathartic because I was releasing these things. And I wasn't sure where I could fit into the community because all my classmates had jobs or different things that were directly impacting the community. So I kind of felt lost, and I wasn't sure the program was for me, but it was life-changing.
Is that very common to the most of us, particularly Latina women? We always believe we're not good enough,
Yes.
that it's not for us. We were raised, most of us, under a religion, perspective that you have to be extremely humble. And by being humble, we confuse it where we don't have the power or we cannot aspire to get to those positions.
Well, it is very common, and it wasn't until I went to the program, which was not that long ago, 2013, that I finally was okay to tell my story because I was ashamed of my story. And it wasn't until I started telling my story that I realized how many people it impacted and how many people could relate to the story.
In most of my conference, I always emphasize in this, our story has power. The more we share the story with the right people, those words don't go in deaf ears. We will be motivating them. If we could do it, if anyone else can do it, they can do it too. And we are in such a need of that when it comes to our community, particularly here in Arizona. You went through pregnancy, teens pregnancy. The numbers of teen pregnancy here in Arizona is incredible across the states. It's very high still, too high. And also the aspects of women constantly with failed relationships. And it seems like the more you go up the ladder when it comes to corporate ladder, it's more difficult to balance the home life and the professional life. Have you encountered that?
I have, and so in continuing with my story, after the leadership program, where I found I had a voice because I'm, believe it or not, very introverted, and I'd rather be behind the scenes.
You could fool me.
I am actually very introverted. I'd rather be behind the scenes. But somebody said something to me during that leadership program that a lot of the issues within our community are bigger than us. So I took that to heart, and so everything that I do and I put my face out there, or if I speak about something, it's because it's bigger than me, has nothing to do with me. So I ran for office, and I now sit on the local high school governing board for Taos Senior High School District, and I'm the only female on the board, and I'm the president of the board, and it happened to be the first Latina president of the board.
You hear that? Well, it is possible. Your dream can be, a reality too, but you have to work at it.
You do.
It doesn't come easy. It doesn't come free. There's usually pain and a lot of hard work through it, but it's possible. Now, I would love to hear from you, Corina, how you telling the story to girls in your same situation where you can look back years ago where you were in the same shoes, where you were afraid, when you didn't have enough money to support your daughter, when maybe the family was not there as a support as you would expect it. What is the encouragement that you give or you share with them?
So I've had the privilege of talking to a lot of youth, whether they're females or males. And so how I decided to share my story, we do a life exercise. And I say, okay, at the age of 15, this happened to you, what would you do? And I let them tell me what they would do. And then at 16, you were pregnant, what would you do? And so we go through my life to the age of 19, and I always ask them, what do you think happened to this person? Every single time, Mari, this person is in jail, this person is on welfare, this person has 6 kids, this person is dead. And so when I ask them, do you want to know what happened to this person? And they say, yeah, I want to know what happened to this person. I pull my picture up and I tell them how I have a long-standing career, I'm an elected official, I get to be a voice for my students of over 12,000 students, and I get to travel and I get to have a seat at the table that helps impact the community.
Querer es poder, we say in Spanish, right? If we want it, we'll make it happen one way or the other one. Now, that story has a lot of power, and I know by you sharing the story, it changes life in many, many ways. What are some of the parts of gratification that you have gotten by sharing the story? Because I'm assuming you're also bombarded in a way that you get a lot of comments, a lot of emails. You're checking right now, and let me give you an idea of how much you're loving the community. Lara Fabi is with us tonight. Marcos Castillo, Melissa Trujillo Burke. Tenemos Venus Henderson Hughes also joining us. Elizabeth Soriano, Erika de la Rosa, thank you for joining. I know she was going to be part of the show tonight. Thank you for being with us tonight, Erika. Jay Gaines, Luisa Cruz, thank you so much. Now we're doing it in English. I appreciate you joining us. Carla Sainz, Melissa Diaz is joining us. Chelsea Field Schultz. Being there with my ex-husband beat me 15 years. So you see, there's so many people that can relate to your story. And I am never getting tired telling our community or members, leaders like yourself, you have to share your story. We all have a story. And that story can really motivate and change the life for many people. It's important, and I congratulate you for speaking out, for talking about your story, because a lot of people say or see us in different leadership positions. They think our lives are very easy.
Or everything's handed to us.
Exactly, and they don't know the real story behind it. So that is the power behind the story. Lorenzo Sierra, way to go. Corina, so inspiring. Well, Lorenzo will be joining us. He has also a very inspiring story. We have with us Aaliyah Petersen, also that, you know, in the African-American community, she's making a lot of waves. We have Carlos Galindo-Elvira, which, oh my God, has been busy extremely during this week. And we also have with us during the show Carmen Brown. She has a very inspirational story, and she is working particularly in changing lives, particularly in families, by Christian Black. So we'll be learning from them. We'll continue to speak to Corina. We'll go with a brief break, and we'll be back. Remember to share the link, to put your comments there, your questions, so our guests can interact with you. This is Con Mary Rabago, Journalism with a Purpose. Thank you for joining us today.
It has been a wonderful experience. I think that having the right level of information at all times to understand how together we can do a better job is great. You guys are great partners, and you took the time to understand why the campaign was important.
Is engage the community, so it becomes a conversation. It becomes a community project. When you call people together, thousands of people will come. There's no other agency can do that.
Mary's viewers are very loyal, very dedicated people to her, and so they trust her.
Mary Rabago Productions was much more timely, and the quality of the product when it was all said and done was fantastic.
We really do need a production company that understands not only the language, the culture, but has the professionalism.
We would support Mary Rabago's production in a professional manner. We know the quality, we know she is professional, and she has a team of people that are caring and very sensitive to the Latino issues in the United States.
Really fast so we can continue. Thank you so much for your patience. Can somebody tell me if they can hear me right now? We're there? Awesome, we're right there. Now we can hear each other. Perfect. As I was saying, this is Journalism with a Purpose, and we ask you to join our conversation by sharing this link so we can engage and learn, get inspired by the stories that we have today with us. You heard a little bit about Corina Chavez Madruga. Yes. I didn't twist the last name because I tend to baptize everyone. I must have been a priest in one of my other lives. And joining us now is Carmen Brown. An honor to have you with us, Carmen.
It's an honor to be here. Thank you.
She's a Christian blogger. The name of the blog is Mary by His Grace. Yes. Thank you so much for being here. A good friend of mine, also Lorenzo Sierra, City Councilman of Avondale.
How are you doing today?
Amazing. Thank you so much for being here. Other than my boys, like, competing with Donald Duck, we're enjoying the day and very eager to learn from you guys. So I'm going to ask you, Carmen, when you speak, to get the mic really close to you, please. And Carmen, did the story of Corina resonate somehow with you?
It did. I was just telling her during the break that I'm actually was a teen mom too. So, and I, married young and went through a marriage that was full of addiction, and it ended up in adultery. And it just felt like it was something I had to do at a young age, and because my heart was to get the family together. And
keep trying, right?
Yeah, just to keep trying and keep doing what you thought was the best thing to do. And so when she was telling her story, I was just sitting there going, oh my goodness, that is so familiar, But God is good, everything worked out.
And I love what you're trying to do with your story. Yes. You're empowering other women, other families with your story. Tell us a little bit of what really goes on in your blog.
On my blog, I really want to speak to women of how I came to a healing, and it was through God's grace, and that is why the title of my blog is Married by His Grace. And with that, I just wanted to explain it with the parenting, with the marriage, and how that under God's grace that we could be restored, we could be healed, and we could completely come to forgiveness towards anybody that has hurt us in our past, that's hurting us now, or anything of that. And so every writing I have is a testimony. Every writing I have on my blog is something that I have endured myself and that I had to get through for transformation. And so I just feel like, once I started writing, it just kept coming out. And even to this day, I realized, oh my God, I overcame so much, and why can't anybody else if I was able to?
Now, Lorenzo, you're hearing the stories of Corina and Carmen also, and you're a male, but that doesn't exempt you from the situation, in particular because being a public servant, you encounter the effects of that kind of situation, adulteries and breaking within the family, the abuse of a lot of women go through. I know that has a direct impact in our society, in the community you're serving.
Well, absolutely, and Mari, I'm also the son of a 16-year-old teen mother. Who is, it's a day-by-day process where how are things going to get done, and I can only imagine, I became a father in my 20s, and it's so overwhelming to have that. I can only imagine what it's like when you're in your teens to do that. But, as a councilman, one of the things that is probably number one for me is the safety of the community. And I've always, wanted to make a point to be able to be there for the domestic violence victims, and we've done several things in the city with domestic violence, making sure that we do have access for those people. In addition to sitting on the city council, I'm also on the board of the Chicanos por la Causa, the Health and Human Services, which has De Colores, the domestic violence shelter, as part of that portfolio. It's one of those things where it's sad that that's part of our community, but it is something that we have to deal with in a very open and honest way.
Now, we keep hearing violence against women. We keep hearing about adultery, and we're not judging anyone, men or women, but that kind of behavior that it has not been eradicated or controlled keeps affecting our society. It's the effect that we have so many single mothers, single homes, also a lot of single dads nowadays, but the effects go to where we see the statistics in jails, where our kids are not growing like many of us did. I had the fortune to grow up in a home where there was a mom and a dad. My kids don't have the luxury. So everything that you guys are mentioning is hits home very much for myself.
You have to also take into account the whole immigration issue right now.
Exactly.
What we're dealing with as a country, with the uncertainty from the highest levels of our government on immigration issues, and that's causing a lot of women who are going through these sorts of situations. They're not making those calls anymore. I just saw that in Los Angeles, the reporting of rapes has gone down 25%. not that actual rape has gone down that much. It's that our community, the Latino community, Latinas are not calling because fear of what might happen to them from an immigration standpoint. It's just wrong. It's wrong morally. It's wrong from a policy standpoint, and it's something that we have to address, each and every one of us.
If I could chime in,
please.
From an education standpoint, I know in our district we've encountered students whose families have been taken.
Exactly.
And so we don't even know these situations are occurring until a student will come to a counselor and say, this has happened, and their parents could have been taken 2 weeks prior. And so now their older sibling who's 18 is responsible for a 15-year-old, a 7-year-old, and a 3-year-old, and they're trying to navigate through the system of how are they going to deal with what's left behind. And so part of our role as the governing board is not only to have good policy and a safe environment for them, but we have to offer reassurance to them. And I often tell folks, you know, students who are loved at home, they're very successful in school.
Exactly.
But students who have all these challenges, come to school to be loved, and it is our job to love them in a way to make them feel safe, to make them feel welcome, to make them feel like they don't have to quit school. So when they come to school, that it's a safe environment for them and some place where we will help them navigate not only through the education parts in the curriculum, but through life.
Let me pick your brains a little bit. So we're talking about different issues here. We're talking about education. We're talking about the family structure, the situations that a lot of women in particular encounter. We're talking about people in public service, politics. Now, where does having a solid family base where our kids should be nurtured to become the leaders that we need in our community, particularly our men. I am the mother of two varoncitos, as we say, 18 and 11. And one of my biggest concerns is that being a single parent, I cannot teach them to be men. And there are many people in my situation, and I just pray and do the best I can, but I know I don't have what it takes. And that's very important that a lot of women understand. Whether you say I'm a father or mother, we cannot be both. We do our best to cover, but there's always a little hole that is emptiness within their heart. So where the base of the family could make a difference in what our society and what we're seeing nowadays.
I would like to chime in on that because for a few years I was a single mother of a son, and that was probably the most heartbreaking time for me. I didn't have the example of a man. I didn't have the leadership of the man. And at times I put that on my own family members, my brothers and my dad, you know, take him out, you know, spend more time with him because there's only so little time that he sees his dad is on the weekends or whatever it may be. And I battled with that so much of being that example. And one of the greatest things that somebody gave me advice was, you just have to be completely honest with your child.
Exactly. Don't sugarcoat it.
Yes, don't sugarcoat it. Tell them that it hurts you just as much as it hurts them. Tell them that you're, you know, that you're raising a man and it's hard, but we could get through this together. And he was still young, so I had to balance those words and make sure I was still speaking to him.
His level of understanding.
Yes, his level of understanding. But that developed a relationship for us to where it became where he wasn't afraid to come to me about certain things. And, you know, I do want to go back to what we're saying also about all the teen pregnancies and the things. It is what you said and opened up with. It's a cultural thing. You know, there's a huge impact of that. I am probably on the 4th generation that had a teen pregnancy. And, you know, and now I'm raising my own teenage daughter. And so those fears enter in as a mother.
It's the cycles that we keep repeating. And those cycles, Lorenzo, affect our society, affects the kind of leaders we have, affect the situation with the hate we are experiencing across the country. We'll be talking about that in a little bit, but affects every single aspect of society. Education, family base, our businesses are affected by that. The crime rate, obviously, you know, skyrockets in many ways. So goes down to the hands of leaders like yourself to make a difference. And like we mentioned with journalism with a purpose, and what we're trying to do here with Con Mary Rabago, now also in English, we've been doing it in Spanish for about 4 years. I know we don't talk about the popular subjects, but we want to engage the community, because if we are not conscious of what really we're doing as a society, and we don't work together and find the ways that we have more things that are alike instead of things that separate us, nothing is going to change, whether it's in Arizona, across the country, wherever you are, listening to us at this time. What do you think in that regard?
So, as I've gotten more and more into sort of my leadership role here as a councilman and on the boards I sit on, and the more I talk to people, it feels as though we just don't believe in each other anymore. And it used to be...
We don't respect each other.
And it's not just respect, but it used to be that you could go down the street and you knew everybody.
The neighbors.
You had respect for everybody. And we've got to get back to the point where we believe in each other. We believe in the American dream. We believe in dignity. We believe in pride. And we need to bring that back. And the best way to bring that back is by living that example, by living the examples that you're living, by living the example that you're giving to your boys, to your audience, to everybody. And that's where we have to take some self-pride and live the example. And that's, as I understand more and more that people are looking to me for those sorts of things, that yes, we not only have to talk the talk, we have to walk the walk.
Very important. Actions speak louder than words.
Absolutely.
In many ways. Now, when we talk also about these issues, we see what's going on in our country. I'm never going to forget my trip to Israel, where the four quarters, you have the Christians, you have the Muslims, you have the Armenians, and you have the Jews. They don't know nothing about each other. They don't do business with each other. They don't communicate with each other. And it's a street, very narrow street, that divides those quarters. And I believe that that is exactly what's happening in our neighborhoods, in our country, in the world, and in general. So that generates hate. The ignorance about our cultures, the ignorance about our customs, our traditions generate hates. We start raising kids with focusing more on the color of the skin of people, their behavior, their accents, where they come from, instead of seeing that we have the same needs, that we want the best for our families, we want a good education, we want good business in many aspects. So in that aspect, I would like to engage in our conversation after this break, and we're going to hear from how those things affect our business community, and also how is hate taking over our country, okay? Would that be a good subject? We'll go to a small break and we'll be back. Remember, don't forget to share a link so more people can join in the conversation. We're expecting your comments and questions also for our guests. Ya volvemos.
It has been a wonderful experience. I think that having the right level of information at all times to understand how together we can do a better job is great. You guys are great partners, and you took the time to understand why the campaign was important.
Is engage the community, so it becomes a conversation. It becomes a community project. When you call people together, thousands of people will come. There's no other agency can do that.
Mary's viewers are very loyal, very dedicated people to her, and so they trust her.
Mary Rabago Productions was much more timely, and the quality of the product when it was all said and done was fantastic.
We really do need a production company that understands not only the language, the culture, but has the professionalism.
We would support Mary Rabago's production in a professional manner. We know the quality, we know she is professional, and she has a team of people that are caring and very sensitive to the Latino issues in the United States.
joining our Facebook Live. Well, this is Con Mary Rabago, now in English, Journalism with a Purpose. We have a panel of leaders within our community that are making a lot of waves, that we are learning a lot, not only by the work in the community, but particular by their powerful story they're sharing with us. So you already have heard from Corina Chavez Madruga, Carmen Brown, which is a Christian blogger. We have heard from Lorenzo Sierra, which is City of Avondale City Council, and now joining us is Aaliyah Petersen. She is a mover and shaker within the African American community. She is a financial educator, but also has a program on social media where welcomes everybody to our city and trying to get a better image of our city, correct?
That is correct.
Thank you so much for being with us today. And the icing on the cake today is nuestro amigo Carlos Galindo-Elvira from the Anti-Defamation League. Thank you so much for joining us, Carlos, for making it happen. You've been too busy this last few weeks. Yes?
It's been quite busy. You got it
It's
right.
been interesting. So you've been hearing the conversation that we had with our previous guest, Aaliyah, how this kind of division, this kind of situation, this broken families, separations and divisions within our community affect the business community.
It affects it quite a bit because as a Black American entrepreneur, you know, other races tend not want to do business with you because of what's going on in social media, what's going on in the news. So it affects quite a bit on a daily basis, to be honest.
And when we talk about this hatred, this division, not only in Arizona, which unfortunately our state has been, you know, the leader in many of the situations that keeps dividing this country, Carlos, what is the status on it right now? I know what happened, you know, recently in the few days, this really powerful demonstration of hate has the United States in a really bad place right now.
So I'm going to offer it in a different way, that yes, what we saw was challenging, it was deplorable, and really goes against the grain of American values of pluralism and of inclusion. I'm going to say it's also an opportunity. It's an opportunity for all of us to join together to denounce hate, to work side by side, no matter your color, no matter your religion, no matter your race. This is a moment to say no to hate and to really talk about those issues of bias, bigotry, and in some cases bullying, especially when we're talking about schools.
Exactly.
So yes, it was awful what happened in Charlottesville and deeply regrettable, especially the death of the young lady and the 2 officers. But let's also take a moment to get together, reach across the aisle, speak with people that we normally don't speak to, and try and create an atmosphere of inclusion for all.
And every single one of you guys in your leadership positions have that opportunity. How do you approach that, like in education?
So, for example, we have students who, I say they're fearful, but they're also so courageous because they're not afraid to say, this is what I'm feeling, or become active. But when they look to us, we have to demonstrate, okay, what can we do and what is our role and what is within our purview? So we can say, as a district, we welcome everyone. Doesn't matter your religion, doesn't matter your race, doesn't matter your economic background, whatever that looks like, we welcome everyone. In addition to that, making sure that those that serve in the district believe in that same philosophy.
Now, Carmen, when we talk about racism, it doesn't go from white to black. You are in a marriage that's interracial, and Latinos are known also to be racial against African American. African Americans are racial against Latinos, whites, yellow, you name it. How do you use that opportunity that you have within your family to unite the communities?
Well, I'm just going to have to be honest and bring it back to the truth, which is just being an example, you know, living the walk that you're preaching, you know, and I am in an interracial, you know, marriage, but that's never, ever crossed my mind because, you know, and just to bring it back to what I do write about, God created us and we're all the same, you know, you just want the truth from me. But yeah, it's just being an example in my writing. It's being an example when I walk out of my home with my children. It's being an example when I walk hand in hand with my husband.
And you get sometimes the amazing looks, because I have experienced, I have heard that around some way or another one. Now, Leah, when it comes to the business, doing business, I would love to say that because I have an accent and because I'm brown, a lot of the doors open more for me. It's not true. I have to prove myself twice in many aspects. Plus, I'm not only brown, I'm short and have an accent, but I'm a woman. So can you explain a little bit of what happens in the business community from that aspect too?
Well, you know, just on a daily, I would say it occurs. You know, you can go into, back to what I was saying, you can go into different establishments. You know, let me go back to healthcare. I was in healthcare for 16 years. Okay, and being in healthcare, the Caucasian people did not want us to take care of them. You know, there was numerous times that I was called, you know, racial slurs and things of that nature. So, I mean, it's very, what can I say? It's hurtful.
Say it like it is.
Yeah,
we
it's
are
very hurtful.
having a conversation here,
You know,
and we got to be open.
Yeah, it's 2017. The biggest thing is we need to unite together. I have, my kids are half Hispanic and half black as well. So I teach them to come together. I teach them that it doesn't matter that you're black and Hispanic, you're unique. You bring both companies. I'm in business. Communities together. You know, I lead my community as a black woman. That is one of the biggest things that I want for my community, because there's so much hate between my own race. You know, I'll tell a story. I went to numerous black businesses to partner up with over the last year. I would say more than half of them did not want to work with me, and that's within my own community.
And it doesn't happen that in Latinos, right, guys? I have never heard that either.
If I could chime in on the woman issue, I happen to be the only woman on the governing board. And no disrespect to my colleagues, because they're all amazing, and I think we have a really healthy board. But what I have found in the beginning was folks were more inclined to listen to them and what they had to say before they would listen to me, despite my experience, despite my education. And so I had to remove myself a little bit, not take it personally, but be able to articulate what my thoughts were, what I brought to the table, with the added value that I have, and that what I could do for my community. And
it's exactly what Carlos was saying. We have to see it as an opportunity. Being in the media for 25 years now, I started when I was 5, because they start with the age deal right away. It was at the beginning, as when I was an anchor, the same situation. It was always the male anchor leading. I had to be just following the lead. I couldn't be myself. I couldn't express all my potential. Now, what we're seeing right now, this hatred around the country, the pressure is on people in government, Lorenzo. As you know, Carlos mentioned it, this is an opportunity, but the pressure is on you guys, local government, state, and obviously federal government right now.
You know, with what's going on right now, I take it very personally. And the reason I take it personally is because you look at, we knew what Trump was. We knew what Arpaio was for 24 years. And it was our friends, our family, our neighbors that voted Arpaio in term after term, that voted Trump in, knowing all that. And I take that personally, because what was it that my side of the political spectrum did or did not do that people lost their hope? They were so hungry for any sort of leadership that they went to the Trumps, they went to the Arpaios. We've got to provide that sort of leadership, and we've got to show that we're standing. We are standing for our community. We're standing for our kids, our elderly, our veterans, and that's what we've got to do, each and every one of us. And that's what pushes back the hate. I told a group of Aguila students recently, because it's been weighing on my mind with all of these things that come up. And I said, you know what my answer is to all of the hate? And I pointed to the kids and I said, you are the answer.
Just look around.
If you succeed, if you get your degrees, if you start businesses, if you are leading successful and prosperous lives, that is the best answer that we can have. And as politicians or policymakers, faith leaders, business leaders, community leaders, we need to give them the opportunity to succeed, and that's the best answer to hate we can give.
But we cannot ignore hate, Carlos. And you, obviously, in that role, the leadership role that you have more knowledge and more information than we do. It really blew my mind to see the growth within the presence here, only in Arizona, of the hate groups. We have about 18 confirmed hate groups here in Arizona. As a reporter, as an anchor, I remember telling the stories of Latino families, African American families, that their homes had been vandalized by these groups. They've been terrorized in their community, in their neighborhoods, and forced to move away just because of the color of the skin. It's a reality. How do we bring the community as a whole in unity? We have a lot of comments here that say that the unity is the key, but how do we accomplish that?
Well, one of the ways that we have to start is we have to name the hate. We cannot ignore it. We cannot wish it away. We have to actively call it out. And at ADL, we work every day to shrink the space for people who may be white supremacists or alt-right, as they call them.
I like shrink the space.
And by the way, the term alt-right is just a rebranding. It's a new name, but it's still the same old hate. So let's not be fooled by that. But there are more of us than they are of them. The question there is, since there's so many of us, how do we come together, reclaim the territory, and say that in Arizona there is no place for hate? At ADL, we have some ideas. One of the ways that we do that is through our education programs called No Place for Hate, where we work in school districts to shrink, to create an environment that's inclusive, that is respectful and free of bias, with students, staff, and engaged community members.
Now, Carlos, exactly what Carmen was talking about, the teen pregnancy, the situation with violence among women, is so ingrained in the Latino community. It is also true that it's a cultural thing and a traditional. So on the other spectrum, when it comes about racial hate, it's passed generation after generation.
And so we have to break the cycle. In whatever instance you're talking about, we have to be strong enough. My little brother, my younger brother, he has a saying where he says, you don't have to stand tall, but you have to stand. So everybody has to find their place where they take that stand. They break the cycle, but they also understand that we have a role, we have a moral role. We are our brother's keeper to find a way of inclusivity for everyone and to be respectful of everyone. El respeto no cuesta nada.
The respect, it doesn't cost.
To be respectful. It costs nothing to be courteous. It's the cheapest thing we can do, but the thing that will give us the biggest dividend in the end.
But we learn respect where?
In our homes.
In our homes.
In our homes. And this is reminding me of the most popular tweet that went out this morning by President Obama, was that he said, no child is born with hate.
Exactly.
And he quoted Nelson Mandela. And that is exactly what you were saying right now, is that no child is born with hate, and it does start in the home, and it does start with us breaking that cycle, breaking that tradition, breaking that generational curse. And I could have left a divorce with adultery and addiction in it with hate. But what was that going to do to my children? Exactly. That was going to just teach them, my mother's angry, let me just go the other way that the parent's doing.
Exactly.
So I had to come to a place where I had to fully forgive and be an example in my home, because whatever my child sees me react to any situation is who they're going to become.
I love that.
And Mari, I think we need to recognize also that on any given day, on an hour-to-hour basis, you could be angry 1 hour, you're scared the next.
Sometimes
we're on
minute to minute here in Arizona.
We're on an emotional roller coaster right now, as a country, as people, as individuals, and we just can't maintain that pace. It's tiring. It's exhausting, and so I think there's a lot of self-care that needs to happen, and just to be aware of when it's becoming too much for people, and I really fear for younger people who are they've not had this in their lifetime before. I mean I think people from the 60s
can relate in many ways.
Can recognize that, okay, this same album, other side now. But we have to recognize that, yes, we need some self-care in there, and that we have to be able to go on through that. And this is a long haul.
It's uphill walk.
This is an uphill walk. We are ice skating uphill right now.
We have a lot of comments, and I want to just share before you go, Carlos. Ronnie Lamour, and I hope I'm not butchering your last name. Conversation, education, communication, which is exactly what we're trying to do during these conversations, the journalism with the purpose. If we don't start bringing the different perspective, the leadership that we have within our communities, nothing will change, Carlos.
Sure. Lorenzo brought up children. And one of the things that at ADL that we promote is ensuring that we have courageous conversations with our children. That what happened in Charlottesville is important to talk to our kids about.
Exactly.
Whether it's at the dinner table in the evening or during breakfast before school starts, we have to explain to them what's happening. And as people of color, we have to share with them what it means for us as people of color. Because this is not just what happened in Charlottesville isn't just about targeting one set of people. It's a multi-set of people from the chants that the neo-Nazis, those go back all the way to the Nazi regime. So you know who they meant that for. They meant that for the Jews.
Exactly.
But it's very clear that the hate is not targeted or focused on one group. It's focused on many groups. And so we have to have the responsibility as adults in having those courageous conversations with our kids.
We have another comment, and please jump in, whoever wants. Who says, Amanda Whiting, I hope it's either or, can become overwhelming. And how many times we have heard that in the Latino community? So many marches, so many demonstrations against what was happening here within our communities, our neighborhoods, with Arpaio, with, Russell Petersen, all that, the long list of politicians that were terrorizing our communities or dividing our communities. And we get tired. Why is it important not to give up and continue with that? Find reasons, look at the positive opportunities in the ugly situations, as Carlos was mentioning. Who can, comment in that respect?
Well, the reason not to give up is because we have to live. There's children. We need to raise our children, and we need to set examples as leaders. We need to get more back into religion, pray, believe, have hope. But there needs to be more leaders within the community that has a mission, that wants more for the world. So that's why I do what I do. I even teach my daughter. She's a mini little me. I teach her as well. What you see from me, you take back to school, and you teach the kids at the school. And as far as hate, we have to love. Kids need hugs. Yes. We need to love them. We need to educate them and talk to them. Hey, this is what's going on in the world, but you can make a difference.
Each of us can do a difference.
And I always tell folks, my time is limited on the board that I'm going to serve on, or my time is limited here on Earth. So I could either wallow in life circumstances, or I could choose to leave it just a little bit better than what I found it. So that's kind of how I operate, and that's kind of how I teach my daughter or those who are around me is, yes, there's all these things, and sometimes it is tiring. My day could go from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. People ask, how do I do it? Because I always remember it's not about me, and my time is very limited in what I have to offer and what I bring value to. So I will keep doing this so that way when my time is done, whatever that capacity is, it's left a little bit better.
As one of my favorite motivational speakers says constantly, it's not what happens to you, it's how you react to what happens to you.
Exactly. Exactly. And I tell my children, I have such a small time to teach you for this world, to teach you what to believe in, and to teach you how to walk humbly and righteously. So it's funny that you say that, because I'm a stay-at-home mom, and although, a lot of my time does go into writing, I know that every time in any of postings I do, I cannot write anything that I write unless I'm practicing it in the home.
Exactly.
And there will be times where I don't write for weeks, because it's just like, I'm about
True
to be
to
a mom
yourself.
at 5. Yeah, I gotta self-care myself and get back those
The
emotions.
balance.
Yeah, because I can't write about overcoming and training up your child in what is right if I'm not being the example of it first.
Now, we talked about hate, Carlos, you know, and color, religion, but there's a hatred that is very embedded in our communities, women to men, the competition, that not the acknowledging. And we have a comment from Jay Gaines. It says, as a woman and as an African-American woman in the real estate investing arena where the All Boys Network exists, I experience the same type of situations. Now, leaders like yourself, and I'm going to speak to the men in this situation, what can you do different? You both have wives, no daughter, well, one stepdaughter. You have two boys, right, Carlos? So what do you do to change that in your daily activities, in your speech, in your rhetoric?
So for us, my wife and I made the conscious decision that we were going to show our boys that women can be police officers, that women can be fire personnel, and in introducing them. Like, I had the greatest joy of introducing my sons to Chief Jerry Williams. And it's important that from a very young age that we teach our boys that women are our equals. And in many cases, they're far more superior than us. my wife and from my mom. And I've been lucky that in my life, the majority of my bosses and my mentors have been women. So for me, it's deeply personal that we provide an opportunity for our boys to understand that boys are not number one and girls are not number two, but they're all equal.
And the combination is when it gives us strength. What about yourself, Lorenzo?
You know, growing up Latino and Catholic, that wasn't the best recipe for being, you know, inclusive of women. And like anything else in life, it's about that evolutionary process where you learn by knowing strong women, by respecting strong women, and understanding that we are all trying to get to the same place. And whether it's, we just want to make sure our kids are good, that we're safe, that we have, good places to work, and that we're making enough to have that pride that comes along with supporting a family. And all of us want that. Whether we're man, whether we're woman, whether we're brown, whether we're black, that's the commonality. And it seems more and more that's being taken away from us. And it's sort of like we've got that American dream and it's right there in front of us.
Fingertips.
And we just can't reach it right now. And that's what, whether we're man, whether we're woman, we need to be able to get that back. And I'll always say that I'll go back to, am I leading by example? And I will say, Corina is someone that I've gotten to get to know through our HLI experience. I know, and I hope Corina knows me well enough, if she ever needs anything, that I am here for her. That Mari, same with you. You know.
I'm a witness of that. I bug them constantly.
I would like to believe that anyone that ever needed my help felt able to do that, and there was no walls between that, or no conditions.
A status like you would not be reachable.
There was no conditions to what I will do for my fellow human being.
Well, I want to close this segment and go to a small break by saying that in my personal experience, I think everything starts in our homes, in our families. I'm the oldest of 9 kids, Mexican family where machismo is so embedded. Fortunately, I had the blessing of having a father that didn't see difference between a boy and a girl. As a very young, I was in the baseball games where I was the only girl. I learned how to drive at 9 years old in a tractor. So you name it, as a man, I did it. He always instilled in us that we could do everything and treated us equal. So I think that's exactly where we need to go back to our homes and start making that changes. We're going to go to a small break and we'll be back. Remember, this is Journalism with a Purpose con Mary Rabago, now also in English.
It has been a wonderful experience. I think that having the right level of information at all times to understand how together we can do a better job is great. You guys are great partners, and you took the time to understand why the campaign was important.
Is engage the community, so it becomes a conversation. It becomes a community project. When you call people together, thousands of people Well, there's no other agency can do that.
Mary's viewers are very loyal, very dedicated people to her, and so they trust her.
Mary Rabago Productions was much more timely, and the quality of the product when it was all said and done it was fantastic.
We really do need a production company that understands not only the language, the culture, but has the professionalism.
We would support Mary Rabago's production in a professional manner. We know the quality, we know she is professional, and she has a team of people that are caring and very sensitive to the Latino issues in the United States.
Thank you so much for continuing with our conversation, and I cannot be more than happy and pleased and blessed by seeing all the comments. I am so sorry, but if I start reading all the comments, I won't have breath to finish the show. I'm a little bit under the weather if you can hear my voice, but I wanted to encourage you to share this link so more people can engage in that conversation. This is social media, the new era, right? So we can continue this conversation. It's only not limited to this era and this place. You can connect with our guests also through the social media. I encourage you to do so, to follow them, to learn from what they're doing in the community, and particularly when it comes to doing in the community, how each of you guys are making a difference every day, fighting these situations, this division, this hate, this teen pregnancy, this violence against women in so many aspects, this racial incidents. Carlos, how about if we start with you? Because your wife is watching right now.
Right, she
got
is.
to go to the nails, not me, look it.
So the difference that I can make or that we can make.
What are you doing every day in your daily activities to make a difference? So
in my daily activities, every day my job is to fight hate. It is to create a world without hate. And we do it in various ways, whether it's through educational programming, responding to incidents, working with law enforcement. So that's what I do every day. But what I do at home on my personal time also matters. And so we try and teach our kids to respect others, that we're all different, we all have the spark of divinity within us, and that we have to be kind to each other. And we do explain to our kids when there are incidents that take place that make them stop and ask us questions. We try and explain to them. We have a son that's 14 and one that's 8, so it's 2 different ways of explaining. But you have to, I just don't work at ADL. I also try and live the values of ADL in what I do.
Go. I love that. Yes. In other words, like we were saying, walk the talk, correct? How about yourself, Lorenzo?
You know what? It's interesting because I've been thinking about this. What I'm doing feels right, and like, would you ever ask a baseball player why he's a professional baseball player, or we ask a musician why they're a musician? But we always have so much skepticism when someone gets into politics. Why are you doing that? Why are you are you in that for yourself? And I would like to believe that this is something that I was meant to do, that God gave me the wisdom and courage to speak up for not only myself, but more importantly, for the community I am so blessed to serve. It is an absolute honor to be able to serve people, and I hope that I can continue, that I continue to earn the trust of the people that I'm serving, and continue to do good.
Well, thank you, Lorenzo. Now, Aaliyah, within the business community, by walking the talk, by serving as an example, what are you doing in your daily activities to make a change or generate a change?
I would say every morning I post something in my group or on my regular page to inspire and motivate people, tell them not to give up on their dreams. Entrepreneurs is the next big thing, I'll tell you that.
Exactly.
So I want to make sure anything that I post, I'm the same way, lead by example. What you see on Facebook is what you see in real life. I have education, I have programs, I teach literacy, I teach all of that, and then if they ever need anything, I am there. I don't want anyone to ever feel that they're left alone, number one. And then number 2 is God. Without God, I'm nothing. I can achieve everything through God. I give
Philippians
God
4:13, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me, right?
Amen.
That is definitely my base for everything. Carmen, well, you have experienced an amazing story, good and bad, but you're putting the story into work in a positive way. What do you do every day?
Every day that I sit down and I want to network and speak to people, my biggest goal is to let everybody know that you can overcome.
Okay.
You can be restored. You can, you know, we talked about emotions earlier, how, you know, we could work from one emotion to another. I battled with depression myself for 16 years. I thought it was a lifestyle, but through God and through the strength that God gave me, I was blessed to overcome that. And now I live a completely different life. I wake up, I'm excited, and I'm blessed to walk out of my door and live life. And that's what I want women to know, that you are example in your home, you are example to your husband, you are example to your children, and that you are an overcomer and you are strong through Christ who strengthened us, as you just said, to get through those trials and tribulations. There is a new way of life.
Thank you so much for sharing. Now, Corina, you don't only have that opportunity within your home, but 12,000 kids you mentioned, where, like I keep insisting, that statistics don't lie. Right. The Latino kids are, you know, taking over the school districts in many ways. We are the biggest minority across the nation. But we still don't have the voting power, the political power, we don't have the financial power, and we definitely don't get involved in education. It's still an uphill walk for us. What do you do every day to make a difference?
When I joined the board, like many women, I had a lot of self-doubt. So aside from professional development to educate myself on how to be a good governing board member, I think one of the most important things we can do is build a relationship and connectivity within the community to bring resources together. So I'm proud that our district within the last few years signed a resolution to allow nonprofit organizations to come into the district to sign up for voter registration. So every September we have voter registration month to engage students who are about to turn 18 in voter registration and civic engagement. But I would also say, not just in the education community, I think all of us are in the public eye in some fashion. I didn't plan to be, but that's what God's purpose was for me. So how am I going to use that? I have to be genuine, and I have to be truthful to who I am. And so I can't sugarcoat what my challenges were. And so I put myself out there, and I put my story out there, so that way folks know I'm just not somebody sitting behind a dais saying voting yes or no on something. I'm a real life person that was sitting in your shoes at one time, and so I have a lot of empathy and sympathy to what you're going through or what you've been through, because I've been through that. And I think a lot of times I don't have, like some of us here, I don't have the support of a significant other. So I have to turn internally. So every day I turn internally and go, how can I be a better person? How can I be a better woman? And God challenges me a lot. And I'm like,
been there, done that.
Okay.
Right, ladies?
I'm not really sure what this test is, but please show me and guide me. And these tests have been hard, and so I have learned that I can't hide my struggles. I can't put this facade that I'm so strong that nothing affects me, because a lot of things do affect me, but it makes me who I am, and it makes me to be a more compassionate person, to be able to help whoever needs it, whether it's by my vote, whether it's by running for office, or by just a conversation via social media because somebody needs an ear.
Conversation, and that's what we're trying to generate within this spectrum in social media. Con Mary Rabago, now also in English. We do it every day in Spanish in the morning, 10 to 11, right here in Mary Rabago Productions. We want to create change. And one word that keeps repeating in all our guests today is these leaders that are making the difference in our communities. Purpose, and I'm sure you heard that many, many times during their answer. Journalism with a purpose. It's not enough just to tell the story. We got to go within the community. We need to relate to the story and find ways to make a change, a difference, because it doesn't help to sensationalize. Help me with that word, please, because this is where my English gets limited. Sensacionalismo in many ways. It gets to the point that we need to come together. When I invited each of you, one of you guys, you say, I don't have nothing in common with the next one and the next one. And you realize that you were wrong, that we have more in common than we really see or accept. We all want the same thing. We want better communities. We want better lives for our kids, better education. We want to grow financial. We want to have more political power to make a difference. And how is that going to happen? Well, it starts right here. This is small time that you have shared with us, and we're so grateful for that. I know you guys have amazing, busy schedules, all of you, and I'm very grateful for that. But this conversation, interacting with our people, I'm sure you're touching many lives of people listening to us. And I'm going to give you a couple of examples because I don't have voice to read all of them. We have plenty of messages, so make sure you go to our social media and respond to them. They're giving you your time. Do the same, please, okay? Maria also says, excellent program. Thank you so much. Mi colombiana preciosa, saludos para usted. Sara Rose, therefore, it says, I like the direction where the conversation is heading. Join the conversation and do what you can do in your surrounding, your family, your community, so we can make a difference. We have Ronnie Lamour again. He's engaged in our conversation today. We need truthful leaders with a calling to serve their communities, to take a stand, or to start helping and educating young men and women to believe in the respect diversities and foster an inclusive community. That is so important. We also have Edgar Olivo también in the business community, another leader that we have here in the Valley's amazing, beautiful production. Thank you so much. And we hope to have you here soon, Edgar. Dimitri Tallery, and I hope I'm butchering everybody's name today, so my apologies. You can call me Radish, which is Rábano in Spanish. You can butcher my last name too. Great job for Aaliyah. We also have Marilu soon. We need to think, what would Jesus do? Would this glorify God, our actions, our thoughts, and what are we sharing with our community? I think every single aspect of your daily life, not only what you do for a living, but what you do within the house has to come together. Be an example. What can we learn from this situation that is happening in our country? The revival of hate. How do we take this opportunity that you mentioned and bring it home to us and the families in our community?
So what I would say is get involved. Work with an organization and try to make a change. And people ask me all the time, but I'm not an activist. I don't march down the streets. Well, activism takes many forms. It's emailing, it's writing, it's calling, it's working with, it's communicating with your neighbors. All of us can be activists, and you know what the quickest way is? It's right here. Because we all carry
social
it with
media,
us.
where we are.
Social media, contacting your member of the legislature, your member of Congress, right here. Everybody who owns one of these, you're an activist. Yes. All you have to do is turn it on and use it.
Use your voice. In other words, we gotta do something about it.
Do something.
Right? You agree?
Do something.
We have Rhonda Garcia. Great to hear that there are community leaders that empathize with the community. Cindy Barnes, yes, thank you, Carmen Brown, for representing believers. And we are different religions, we're different beliefs, different races, different customs, different cultures, but you realize that we have the same needs and wants, and we want the best for our community and our kids. Timberly, great panel filled with diversity and spiritual truth. And that's what we need to do every day. Speak out and share our stories, because remember that our story has power. I want to thank you, each one of you, Carlos Galindo-Elvira, Lorenzo Sierra, Aaliyah Petersen, Carmen Brown, and Corina Chavez Madruga. Thank you so much for making an afternoon one that is filled with knowledge, wisdom, and action within our community. Thank you so much for joining us. This is Con Mary Rabago in English with Mary Rabago Productions. Thank you so much for being with us. Don't forget to share the link, and don't forget we have another appointment next Wednesday at 5 p.m. Hasta la próxima.
Thank you.
Thank you.